England just lost to Italy in the, and I can see many people around the world were tuned to this football match. In fact, it's one of the most watched events in the world, and watched by hundreds of millions of people around the world. In fact, it buttresses the point that I'm about to make. Welcome here. If you're new, God bless you, my subscribers. Please share this video, invite people to come and watch, and let's learn something about ourselves as people of color. Um, the question you should be asking yourself is that how many people watch the African Cup in contrast to the European Cup, which is watched by even Africans, perhaps even more than Africans watch African Cup. We are continuing the series I started last week on ancestral cares or mindset. Ancestral cares or mindset. And today's topic is going to be termed the cares in quote institutions which benefited from slavery and those that participated in the Holocaust. Cares institutions which benefited from slavery and those that participated in the Holocaust. Um, the first series last week had to do with ancestral cares or mindset. And in there, and I wanted to check out the video, actually go back and look into it. We talked about why perpetrators of heinous crimes of rape, of murder, of abduction, and all of that actually um, thrive. And then their captives, the descendants of their captives, the descendants of their victims are rather the ones who are talking about ancestral cases. And we talked about how these former perpetrators and their descendants are still thriving in spite of the evil they committed against so many people around the African continent. Now, today we are talking about institutions which were part of the slave trade, which were beneficiaries of the slave trade, which were established with proceeds from the slave trade, and then those that participated in the Holocaust, all in a series to establish this point of an ancestral mindset over an ancestral curse. And as we keep going on with this, you understand why there are so many charlatans going around in Christendom and why they get their customers all the time because it appears the average Christian is not learning from the past, actually. And mostly the two places that the inspiration for ancestral curses are drawn from. One of them being our collective ancestral worship of idols. And we can clearly see that though the Europeans mostly left idol worshiping years before many African countries did, and not all, because there are also some early adopters of Christianity. Especially when you read those who came, the books of Acts, those who came from all over. But basically, generally, many, because of the works of Paul, the apostles, many European and countries, and those countries in Asia Minor and the rest, left idol worship far before so many African countries did. Now, because of that, a lot of people think that we have some special thing to do with the ancestral curse. We have something special to do, but you must understand that the countries of Europe and the rest also had an ancestral worship of idols. So it was a collective thing done by all mankind. Even the Jewish that were rescued by Jehovah himself, the people tended to go back to idols from time to time. So the worship of idols cannot be an exclusive thing, something for the black race. And if you can check my video, one of the videos I did on Facebook, where I asked that question: is idol worship exclusive to the African? And you see the answers over there. Today, we want to continue to establish that this block that has been placed on us by many people who keep preaching that somehow there's some spiritual obstacle to our progress, a spiritual obstacle they call a curse, for which reading certain we are actually chiseling away, debunking that theology, because it's one of the greatest, one of the strongest reasons for our lack of progress. Because if your enemy is something spiritual, how do you deal with it? Especially a post born again ancestral curse theory is what we are going against today. So then we're going to pick some institutions for you to actually picture, and then you ask yourself why these institutions are not cursed. Whether any of your ancestors did anything worse than these institutions did, and why they are not cursed and you are, or your ancestry is. You understand these things. Now, there are nations that participated in the transatlantic slave trade, but the major ones, the very major nations that partook in this war. There was a trans-Sahelian or trans-Saharan slave trade, in which slaves were taken from here to the Arab countries. Now, it being the Arab countries, look at the progress that's there, even though it's in the middle of the desert. These are people that castrated Africans because they didn't want them to intermarry with their women, castrated them, treated them with brutish wickedness for years. In fact, the trans-Saharan slave trade lasted for far longer than the transatlantic slave trade, and it was more destructive than the transatlantic slave trade. And you look at Dubai, look at the Emirates, look at Saudi Arabia, look at all these nations. Even in the middle of a desert, they're doing better. They're doing far better than most African nations. Now let's come to the ones that I want to talk about: the transatlantic slave trade, the one that were perpetrated mostly by the Dutch, the Danes, by the English or British, then by the Americans. Remember those days, mostly America was a colony under British, but the Americans also participated in these things in many ways. These were the main people that were involved in the transatlantic slave trade, killing of millions, tens of millions of people. And after the transatlantic slave trade, some of them continued in what we call the colonial legacy, in which they also massacred millions. The case in point is Congo, where the population was half by King Leopold III, where they cut people's hands to short sleeves and long sleeves. These people had gods that they cursed them with. There are rivers that they must have cursed these people with. Why is still Belgium far richer than the Congo? Why hasn't there been a curse on Belgium so that the women will not give birth, so that they will be dying young, so that some atrocity will be happening there? Unfortunately, the only place the atrocity is happening is rather in Congo. The victims of this heinous crime. So we've gone to Europe, we've gone to the Middle East. Now let's go specifically to institutions, because that's what we are talking about today. And I want us to picture all these things so that when somebody comes to you with this theory that some spiritual obstacles in your way, even though you are born again, you will fight it with every fiber of your being, because that theology is demonic to the core, is and is like accepting to fail and blaming an invisible force for it. Because if there's any cause for a curse, it should be slavery. Because as I said in my last video, every one of the commandment was broken. Taking somebody's wife, taking people by force, abduction, killing, maiming, these are all commandments. everything could be, everything was involved in slavery. Making somebody work for years without wages, all of these things were and are still against what the Bible teaches, both in Judaism and in Christianity. Let's go to some specific institutions, as I said. Now, I know you've heard of, let's go start the US. I know you've heard of Harvard, the most Ivy League university, one of the most prestigious in the world, one of the richest. They run a multi-billion-dollar fund, Columbia University. Where people are happy to go there. Princeton University, these are Ivy League University, Yale University. University hunting them in their corridors, and I mean, are they experiencing failures and not lack of maintenance? No, 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 no. These are the best, some of the best universities in the world, not even in US, in the world. These universities have endowment. What has become of their slave legacy? And these institutions that were established with the proceeds from slavery, some of them use slaves for the building of their facilities. People, indentured people who have no rights. Some of them, I mean, slaves accompanied students, who were masters and served them while they were still in school. Why hasn't karma caught up with these institutions? Where is this? Where's karma? Where is where's karma? Where is the curse that's supposed to be upon them because their parents perpetrated this evil upon others? Where is the curse? Do these universities every sane young man would like to attend, and yet they were built on the sweat of people who have been abducted and kept by force in slavery. Didn't they cry to God during the time they were serving? Of all the atrocities they suffered, they did not pray. And yet these universities are still